Even famous CEOs mocked Apple for launching the first iPhone at $500 plus a 2-year contract. And they had a point, it was a crazy amount of money to ask for a phone at the time. Though Cupertino did respond. Even with the success of the first iPhone, the next generation launched at $200 plus a 2-year contract, or $650 if you went unlocked, and that sort of set the pace for the industry for a bit. Then Google decided to challenge that with the Nexus 4 and 5, but it really wasn't until OnePlus came to town that things became aggressive. Their US launches have become a new fan favorite, so much so that I'd like to believe that they moved the needle enough for Apple to wake up. The result? This is iPhone 11, Apple's current best-selling iPhone and only the second time the company iterates on a lineup with a drop in the price tag. Then this is the OnePlus 7T, an example of how even the new pacemaker can take a step back and nail essentials for a more affordable price. Right now, the OnePlus 7T is $100 less expensive than the iPhone 11, so the biggest question is, are you really getting $100 more of a phone here than here? I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and this is iPhone 11 versus OnePlus 7T. There's a world of budget phones and a world of budget flagships. On one corner, we have a veteran in this department, and in the other, we have a company that learned the hard way that consumers are mostly focused on getting value than flashy materials and great marketing. When comparing size, it's interesting to see that both devices are substantial in different ways. The OnePlus 7T is 10mm taller, but that's it. The iPhone 11, on the other hand, is 1mm wider, a hair thicker, and 4 grams heavier. Now, from a feel perspective, the taller weight distribution of the 7T will make it feel lighter and thinner, even if the difference is technically negligible. Both are made of aluminum and glass, but with different finishes. Some will be fans of the extra color options on the iPhone 11, others on the color choices for OnePlus and the added matte glass. Both devices even share small things that we love, like the mute slider approach, or things that we hate, like the lack of a headphone jack, so I wouldn't really call a winner here. Now, where the OnePlus 7T just demolishes the iPhone is when we move into their displays. Sure, Apple is famous for knowing how to calibrate a screen, but you can't compare an LCD versus an AMOLED. You can't compare 1080p versus some weird form of 828p. You also can't compare support for DCI-P3 and HDR10+, along with a 90Hz refresh rate versus none of that. And don't even get me started about the 6.55 inches versus 6.1, or the smaller bezels on the 7T, or the significantly smaller notch versus the iPhone 11. The OnePlus 7T just wins this one by a long shot. And even if their biometrics are different in their approaches, I'll give them equal points for their speed and reliability. But then the spec sheet is one of those fields where OnePlus wins again. We're not going to argue over the differences between the A13 Bionic and the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus. These are both great chips in their own way. And sure, I know that the 7T has twice the RAM. Thing is, the 7T retails for $100 less and gives you double the storage, 20% more battery, and one of the fastest chargers in the industry in the box versus the slowest one. And I mean the slowest. Really, the only spot where the iPhone wins is because it has an IP rating and where OnePlus only claims that it's splash-proof. And also because of its more modern Wi-Fi and because it has Qi wireless charging. Now, don't think that the added specs mean any substantial improvements in performance if we were to compare the 7T versus the iPhone 11. See, this is one thing that Apple gets right. iOS 13 may not be everyone's cup of tea, but if you did the math of how many iPhones Apple sells nearly every year, you'll know that a good amount of people like it the way it is. Some people really do prefer the simplicity of a practical grid of icons, and it really doesn't matter what you do with this phone. It's clear that Apple does a good job at making less power-hungry software. And let's face it, this is also the king of timely software updates even for older phones. And if you own any other Apple products, the whole topic of its ecosystem is also a major reason why people buy into it and prefer to stay put. Now, Oxygen OS is by far the user interface I'd recommend most for Android users. If there's one company that takes performance seriously, it's OnePlus. This phone is fast, and I mean blazing fast. I mean, you can move around the UI, launch whatever game. There's just so much thought into the placement of the icons after you open a folder, to the perks like using your fingerprint to unlock applications, to the gaming mode, to the reading mode, and even to the Zen mode. And sure, you're not getting an ecosystem as complete as what you get from Cupertino, but if we were to focus on the added software benefits of this phone alone, and I think OnePlus is doing a better job. And you also have to hand it to them for being one of the first companies shipping Android 10 on this phone, even if we do know that the track record for older phones and getting software updates is not necessarily the best. I'd give them the win if it were up to me, but really, software is more a matter of taste. Now, when it comes to using these phones on a daily basis, that becomes more of a tie. Phone calls, for example, are great on both. I can't really tell you that one performs better than the other, and also, network performance is very comparable. Even if we were to jump into the case of battery life, these are some of the two best battery performers of late 2019. If you're in the market for a phone that can last all day and then some, these are some of the champs for the respective operating systems. You can't go wrong. But let's just cut to the chase and discuss the topic that can seriously make or break comparisons in this category. Let's talk about what these cameras can do. See, the only thing that the iPhone 11 doesn't have that the top-of-the-line $1,000 Pro brings is the telephoto lens that a lot of people rarely use anyways. And sure, the OnePlus 7T does offer that versatility, along with their larger megapixel count in most scenarios. But you and I know that in this department, the results are what really calls the shots. Like any pair of phones you'd compare, both devices do well in daylight. Colors and saturation are quite comparable. I do notice a bit more saturation coming out of the iPhone, but you'll barely notice it. The iPhone was just doing better with the shutter as moving flowers were captured almost perfectly, where the 7T struggled a bit. The 7T has the added versatility of that telephoto, a standard and a wide, but notice the differences in the shades of green produced by each focal length. The iPhone 11 lacks that versatility, but the colors are uniform across both the wide and the regular. Sure, I do wish we had that telephoto for street photography, but the ultra-wide is more useful for my needs. Both devices have a night mode, but OnePlus is more explicit about giving you a camera selection for it. With the iPhone, you depend on the shutter variation popping up, so I had a few cases where I just didn't get the option. Now here I will tell you that I'm shocked at OnePlus as it's clearly gotten better. Both devices produced photos that are quite similar, with the OnePlus favoring more eye-pleasing, sharpened results. Now talking about standard portrait photos, there are some pros and cons for both. The iPhone provides far better skin tones, detail, and color, but struggles with hair, where the 7T gets the hair right but fumbles with the detail. And I noticed the same problem if we were to look at selfies, where the 7T has more megapixels, and yet I prefer the results from the iPhone. Colors are just more accurate to what I remember, and now you get a wider shot, though selfie portraits are cropped. The 7T has cooler colors for those that prefer them, but the results are too soft for my taste. And then selfie video is a definite win for the iPhone 11. Sure, the 7T has a better stabilization, but that's because it maxes at 1080p even with the added megapixels. Obviously at 4K, the iPhone 11 has far less of a canvas to juggle stabilization, but the color and the detail is just unmatched. Now, standard video was a very interesting test as the capabilities are pretty much similar, and you'd even say that OnePlus wins this one because of the added saturation versus the iPhone. But the thing about it is, I was there, the place was crazy gloomy, and the phone delivering the accurate colors and depiction of the moment was really the iPhone 11, and that's really what I have to favor in this comparison. To conclude, let me just say that this comparison was actually more difficult than I thought. If you watch any of my previous comparisons, OnePlus devices would always beat iPhones, but it was mainly because of the substantial differences in price tag. Here we're just talking about $100 in price difference, which proves the reason why the iPhone 11 is so hard to resist. The only question now is which one gives you more for that money. The iPhone 11 gives you enough elements for you to feel that you're not getting cheaped out in not buying the Pro variant. You get most of the camera elements and the overall experience that'll make you feel like if you're not getting shortchanged. You're still buying a 2019 iPhone regardless. My problem is mainly the things where Apple cheaps out on and where OnePlus doesn't. See, the 7T brings a far better display, double the storage, faster charging, and a user interface that even makes Google's own stock Android look like if it needs work. The camera may not be better than the iPhone 11 in some scenarios, but you're not buying a bad camera either. It's good enough to compete in many essentials and offers more versatility. If you're in the market for a budget flagship, I honestly think that the OnePlus 7T is a better buy. I mean, who doesn't want to get double the storage and more perks for your money? Even in this category, I really don't mind OnePlus disrupting the market yet again. It proves that companies can do better, charge less money, and give you the best hardware and software. What about you? Which one would you pick? Chime in the comments, and while you're at it, follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. Instagram is where our extended coverage happens, so make sure you follow us there, and follow me on my personal handles to see what I do with these phones. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.